All right, so moving forward, there's some new flows that are being released as well. There's flows to move and copy files and generate shareable links in Office 365. There's new page approval flows for your communication sites. And in general, Microsoft's really committing to Flow and Power Apps as being the future, and you'll see that with a lot of these updates. Moving forward, there's some new updates to Microsoft Forms. Microsoft Forms is like the very lightweight survey type tool that comes with pretty much all Office 365 SKUs. They're improving accessibility across the board, including things like higher contrast displays and better readability by mobile screen readers. There's also a new option to be able to embed your form directly in PowerPoint now. So kind of cool to show that you could take live web objects and put them into PowerPoint. And then there's also some new ways to analyze your results. So traditionally, you would put it into an Excel file, and it would show you some very high-level results aggregated across the board. Now they provided more ways to visualize the data. There's also a new feature around editable tables. Not editable, but editable tables in Power Apps. So this allows you to connect to any common data source, including Excel, and easily have like a spreadsheet view within your Power App. So if you have multiple spreadsheets that you're keeping track as your day-to-day business goes, you can now make that Power Apps enabled for your mobile workforce, or just tie in different functionality and different connections all in one place. Pretty cool stuff. Still very early, but definitely heading in the right direction of combining Excel with other features that you can have access to. There's also a number of pre-built screens that Microsoft is rolling out for Power Apps. Think of these like ready-to-go templates, things like scheduling your calendar or sending an email. So we've probably all recreated these types of forms 100 different times for different projects, different Power Apps. Now there's going to be out-of-the-box forms and templates that we could reuse. So pretty easy one to make it even faster to build apps. There's also a number of new things coming with Microsoft Stream. So Microsoft Stream is like the enterprise video platform inside of Office 365. So they're rolling out new features to have live events. Live events is akin to Skype for Business broadcasts, where you can have a lot of people joining, one person presenting. So it's pretty cool. The new integration with Stream and Teams. So like actually, starting next month, we're going to be recording these using Teams instead of Skype. And those recordings will go into Stream. And Stream also has mobile apps now where you can download your videos to watch them for offline use, which is pretty cool. They're also expanding Stream to pretty much all of the SKUs, including the small business SKUs. And they're also bringing a lot of the AI capabilities. So AI capabilities meaning things like transcribing your audio in real time, or providing more information about who's speaking at what ports to make it more searchable. Previously, that was reserved to be more of a higher licensed feature. Now it's coming to all 365 plans.
You're saying that's out of the box?
Yeah. So those capabilities are currently out of the box if you have E3 or E5. Yeah. There's been a lot of new features announced with the communication sites at Ignite. So part of this is a new mega menu that comes out of the box. I think everyone that's ever built an intranet has been asking Microsoft to provide this kind of feature since the 07 days. 11 years later, we finally have it. So we're pretty excited about that. They've also focused a lot of time around personalization and targeting, as well as giving you more control without having to write code to customize your headers and footers. So that's always a welcome change. We've been doing a lot of intranets on top of the communication sites for some time now, and everything had to be through code. And while most of what we had to do, we found one way or another to do it, sometimes it wasn't always the best supported way because when communication sites rolled out, there wasn't a whole lot of extensions available. With this coming out, this kind of reinforces the fact that there will be more better supported patterns to get this accomplished that Microsoft will provide for us. There's also a cool feature here where you can enable your root site for SharePoint in your tenant to be a communication site. So by default, it's a classic team site, and it looks kind of strange if you just land on it by going to your tenant name.sharepoint.com. Now you can make it look decent and have that friendly URL or friendlier URL that you'd like.
Stop hacking that site.
So another announcement at Ignite was something that they are now calling Microsoft Search. This was actually revealed kind of in a beta alpha view last year at Ignite. And it was branded Bing for Business. And now this is Microsoft Search. So the cool thing here is that it basically combines content from within your organization using the Office 365 Graph APIs and Search side by side with public web information. So you can go to one search box, type in what you're looking for, and combine inside company as well as external content in one location. I'm yet to see this in effect, but we're excited to see this roll out and become more accessible, and then maybe we can play around with it a bit.
I just wanted to ask you guys, because I've actually set this up as a test case for my company, and I'm just curious, what do you guys think about the idea of using Bing to search content on SharePoint and in other locations in Office 365? I see one head shake over there. Yeah. What do you guys
In a
think?
business use case, the whole point of an intranet search is to search the content in SharePoint, and then obviously you can spread it out to your own data sources.
Yeah.
It's all internal. Why mix it up with Bing content out on the internet? I don't get the business use case,
Yeah.
to be honest.
So here's a business use case. Let's say I'm looking for a Photoshop expert for an upcoming project that I have, and I type in Photoshop consultant, Photoshop expert. Well, I might not know in my large company that they actually have a design team full of Photoshop specialists that I could pull in into my project. So one of the use cases is really to be able to help expose what you might have as company assets that employees might not be fully aware of.
Go around the other way. Go to Google, you go look it up, or because Microsoft just bought LinkedIn, guess what? Eventually that's going to merge it, but what I could go to LinkedIn, I separate the tasks from I just
Yeah.
bother to put together. But all right, you give me a use case.
Yeah, and that being said, you do have the tabs across the top, so you can still refine and define what scope you're looking for. This just gives you one way to break down those silos.
And I would also say, one of the things that I did really like about this, although it's not really related to the fact that they're using Bing as a search result, but they harnessed the same Q&A maker that you use for bots in Teams, so that you can build a Q&A question set that displays out here. And that's super easy to use without ever having to type in any code or anything like that. So I put in a couple of examples of that for mine. I like that part of it, but other than that, I'm kind of with you guys. I don't understand why it would be external. I think it's only going to serve to terrify.
Pulling the first in Teams in here,
Yeah. Agreed.
you know, because then the bot, I'm using the bot interface of developed apps. If I search on the top bar that I do in Teams, and that came up, I'd be fine with that. But,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta go outside of it.
Do you happen to know if Azure P1 license to use the Q&A maker?
No.
No.
So the Q&A maker recently came out of its preview. I'm not sure if they're keeping it free or if there's a license associated to it now.
Oh, okay.
But,
So maybe it's just free right now because it was in preview.
right. I think it's still very cheap, but I'm not sure if it's completely free.
It's very easy to implement as well. I'm happy.
So huge thanks to Turn Digital for sponsoring the event. They provide food and other necessary expenses to run the business. I am one of the employees of Turn Digital. I'm not Turn Digital myself. All right. So without further ado, our main event, we have Mike Dixon with Teams Evolution Part 2.
Part 2. We've done this before. All right. How's everybody doing? Awesome. All right.
Not bad for a cold day.
Yeah, it is starting to get cold. It's weird. So for those of you that are online, this is going to be a very interactive meeting, actually for everybody, online or otherwise. I'm planning on doing this very interactive, so ask your questions. Dimitri's going to be monitoring the chats online, so if somebody online has a question, he'll be your voice. So feel free to jump in at any point if
if I say anything that you have questions about or just feel is completely outright wrong, and we'll talk about that. Because it could be. This stuff all moves at a blistering pace. So by no means do I guarantee the accuracy of anything I'm about to present. No, that's not true. So Teams evolution. Oh, right. Other deck. That's not my deck. No promises. There we go. Okay, so my name is Mike Dixon. I work for Wellington Street Consulting. Wellington Street Consulting has been in the Microsoft space for over 13 years. We've been focused on Office 365 since shortly after they announced the brand change from BPAWS to Office 365. So we didn't touch BPAWS, but we've done a lot with Office 365. We've migrated over 56,000 mailboxes to Office 365. That's a lot of mailboxes. That's a lot of PowerShell scripting. So I really enjoy doing PowerShell scripting. And we've been focused on Office 365. I already said that. A partner since 2005. And also, in addition to that, in this past year, we've been highly focused on Microsoft Teams. Every single project that Wellington Street Consulting has done this year in 2018 so far has been related to Teams. Most of them have started as Teams. A lot of them have had intranet sites also, and we're actually going to talk about why that's a separate thing. So that's me. I'm Mike, father, widget whisperer, lifelong learner. I love learning this stuff. I go to as many of these free events as I can possibly rack up. In my free time, I'm generally watching YouTube videos about new stuff that's coming out in Microsoft technologies and other various technologies as well. So I kind of live, eat, and breathe this stuff. So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, let me know. All right, Teams evolution, part 2. So there was a part 1, believe it or not. Last year, at around this same time, we did the same thing, or I did the same thing. Teams was in a much different place. If you guys want to go back and check that out, it's available on my blog. You can see that at wsc.tips/Teams Evo 2017. I have both the deck and a recording of this session at this user group from last year. It was one of the first ones we did and posted on YouTube. Pretty cool. So if you guys want to catch up, I thought it was hilarious. I went back and I rewatched this thing just to remind myself of how far Teams has come so I could talk about some of the updates, and I was reminded of a lot of things, and I was also amused that there were a few things that I said in there like, nah, Microsoft's never going to fix that, and that they have, or they changed some things. So, So that's enough about me. I want to learn about you guys. How many of you are using Teams right now? Holy cow. Wow. So that's a big change from last year. Last year I got about 2 hands on that question. What are you guys using it for? How many people are using it for file management? Okay, just a few hands. I got about 3 hands here. And how about for team conversations? Okay, a few more hands, about 5. Peer-to-peer chat? 4 people. Okay, how about meetings? 3 people. What do you guys think of, for those of you that are using it for meetings, what do you think of the meetings interface?
Fantastic. The audio codec can't be beat.
Yeah. Awesome. Audio codec can't be beat. Nice.
No, not the ones I've seen.
Yeah. Now, what were you guys using prior to that?
Yeah, I'm a consultant. I've been everywhere I've done.
Okay.
Skype.
But what was your preferred, if you were doing internal?
Conference.
Yeah.
WebEx.
Okay.
Preferred. Probably Zoom.
Uber Conference or Zoom. Okay.
You know, something web-based that's.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. And how about for anybody using it for portal or app aggregation? Maybe a little bit, sort of.
Can I add one to more? This
Yeah, sure.
Project management.
Project management.
All projects, all in teams.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in what way? Are you guys doing like a team per project? Nice.
Sometimes you get channels or even. Yeah.
Sometimes channel for a smaller project
Small project. Yeah.
or like a sub project of a larger one. Okay, sounds good. We're going to talk about that as a use case later on. Awesome. All right, so just a quick overview for the uninitiated. I'm just going to go through real quick what is a team. So a Microsoft team has a lot of components. When you click on Create Team, there's a whole provisioning process that kicks off in the back end. The biggest thing you're going to get is an Office 365 group. Okay, so anytime you have a team, you get an Office 365 group. But an Office 365 group also has a ton of other things. So it has a SharePoint site collection that gets generated automatically in the background. That's a SharePoint site collection that has a special template to it. So the SharePoint site collection is not like the other SharePoint site collections. There are a couple of very specific attributes, so be aware of that. Security is different, for example. You get a mail-enabled security group. Some people were referring to this as just a group becomes an identity. It's an identity that you can assign permissions to. The mail-enabled security group is that identity component. That's the part that allows you to do that. You get a planner plan, you get a stream channel, and you also get a OneNote notebook. Okay, the OneNote notebook is a subset of the SharePoint site. The planner plan is interesting. That's something that they've made a lot of changes since last year. Last year it was very static, one-for-one relationship. You got one plan for one team, and that was it. And now they've completely disconnected that. So you can add a planner tab and connect to a plan that exists in a completely different, not related to a team or in a different team. You can also create a separate plan for every channel that you have. You can create multiple plans for a single channel. There's no more connection between those two things. And that's a really big change since last year, and a very welcome one. So lots more flexibility there. Anybody have any questions on any of this stuff? Anything new, interesting, surprising?
How big or small is the team? How small?
In what measure?
How many, size of the group?
So it caps out at 2,500 is the maximum number. There's no minimum. Well, there's a minimum of one. Whoever creates it is automatically assigned as an owner, and there always needs to be one owner. So that's about it. Any other questions? Yeah.
Did I hear an announcement that they're gonna have an automatic team for everyone in the organization?
An automatic
That's what I
team
heard,
for
that
everyone.
Get everyone on. For everyone to be included in the team? Yeah.
Oh, an everyone team.
Yeah.
So not like a separate team for everyone, but one team for everyone. I don't know if you heard that. I did not hear that. That doesn't mean that somebody didn't say it, but I hadn't heard about that. That would be kind of interesting. That would change a lot of the dynamics of teams and how it's being utilized today.
Yeah, there was some objections to it.
Yeah.
I think I saw this.
I think I would object to that. Because, yeah. But yeah, they've made some recent changes that I'll be talking about in a little bit. So more on that in a little bit. So what is Teams good for? So a couple of use cases for Teams. Now, again, it's just a product. You can use it any way you see fit. It's just a matter of some ways work better than others. Like I said, I've done tons of Teams projects just this year, and these are the most common scenarios that I'm seeing people use them for. So people are largely using them for extranets. That's a really, really common one. And the reason for that is because it's super easy to align teams with compliance. Because each team spins up an entire SharePoint site collection, that site collection can be its own entity. So from a compliance standpoint, you can apply extra compliance just to that one team and use that silo and say, just this one team is HIPAA compliant. So our HIPAA data goes here. HIPAA data doesn't go anywhere else. It only goes here. Or this one other team, not the HIPAA one, but a different team, we allow external users. We don't allow external users on all of our teams, but this one we do, for example. You know,
If
yes.
you have external users, can't they see it? Can they see the stream videos?
No, they
They're
cannot. So
external?
that's an excellent question. I want to repeat that for the people online. What can't external people see? So just to get everybody on the same page, external people in Teams, Microsoft refers to as guests. Everybody else in the world calls them external. But just so you understand it, when you see it in the labels in Teams, it's always referred to as guests. And that's another big change that they've made since last year. Last year, that story was very complicated. Guest access was very limited. Guests that were invited had to have Teams on the other end, and they had to have a license for it on the other end. Now all of that's gone. So you can literally invite absolutely anyone. They don't need any licensing. They don't need anything. They will be prompted, if they don't already have a Microsoft account, they'll be prompted to create a Microsoft account. But Microsoft has actually highly simplified even that process. So it's very quick, and that's a free Microsoft account. It's not a licensed account. They will not see Stream, though. And to my knowledge, as of right now, Stream is one of the only things that's left that they can't see. They can do pretty much everything else. I have also recently found, in digging around in PowerShell, I found that there's a switch called Enable Guests as Owners. So you can actually set up a guest. Now, to be really clear, because I don't want to set off any alarms or panic anybody, you would have to go into PowerShell and go to a specific team and toggle this switch that enables that for one team. And then that would enable somebody who is already an owner to upgrade guests to owner level within that team. And just for the record, I have never done that. I'm actually interested in doing that. We actually have one of those, a team that Dimitri and David and I all use for coordinating this event. And that team lives in a different tenant because we have a tenant that's sponsored by Microsoft for us. So we're all logged in as guests. And I figured that would be the perfect one to kind of toggle that and enable all of our guests so that they were full owners. So I'll report back to you guys in a couple of months on how that works. It's a quasi-terrifying switch, but there are some use cases where that could be super useful. Yeah?
You can stop me if you're getting this one later, but do you see that they're going to be changing the permission levels on channels within Teams at any time? Meaning that I've got a team, internal, external teams at my client sites, and I've got an internal team of 20 people separated by project.
Yeah.
Which is really annoying. There's only 3 people per project, and there's 20 people who see the same message. And I can't break that currently. Do you see that happening in the future or anything about it?
So the question is, let me let me see if I understand this correctly. The question is, can you have separate permissions on separate channels within
One channel
teams?
in between, in one team.
Within one team, right. Yeah, so different channels having different permissions. I have seen some things that, so the first solid answer is right now, no. That's definitive. Right now, no. However, they are starting to move towards things that are leaning towards that. One of the top voted feature requests in the Teams user voice is private channels. That's a highly requested thing. And that's essentially what a private channel would be, right? I mean, you got to define what private means. Private's going to mean a smaller group of people than these other groups of people. That kind of flies in the face of everything that they're trying to do with the security structure of Teams. So I think that's going to be problematic. Not that they're, note that I didn't say that they're not going to do it. I just think that it's going to be problematic. So yeah, Teams security is really interesting, but they've also recently added a setting where only owners can post. So if you think about that one, that's kind of, if you were to enable that, you're kind of turning your members into viewers, to use SharePoint parlance.
Isn't that only on the general channel though?
There's a separate setting for changing things up on the general channel, yes. So I think through a series of settings, like if you were to create, you could create a team that has only a general channel, or actually could have multiple channels, and then you can deselect the ability for members to create new channels. And then only owners can create channels, only members can play in the existing channels, and maybe they can only do read in a single, in the general channel. I'm not sure if that's general or all of them. Remind me of that when we do the demo later, and we'll take a look at what the verbiage is around that. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna pull up the settings and take a look at that. There have been a lot of very recent changes in that area.
This boils down to the philosophy of what's the purpose of Teams and compare it to SharePoint.
Yeah.
If you want a private collaboration space, go use SharePoint. If you want an open collaboration space, use Teams. That to me has always been its selling point.
Absolutely.
And now what we're trying to do is turn it more into SharePoint.
Right. And I 100% agree with you. As what I have been saying to all of my clients, okay, and this speaks directly to this slide. What I've been saying is, okay, we're going to use Teams. What's interesting about Teams is every member of Teams is a contributor. So everybody that joins it, they can edit documents. And that's why, sir, you want a separate intranet. And that intranet lives in SharePoint. So I've been doing intranets in SharePoint, and then these things, extranets, projects, and department teams in Teams. That's the architecture that I've been moving forward with. But I completely agree with you. These recent changes are kind of throwing that out the window. They don't necessarily throw it out the window, but they throw out the possibilities of those things. I can no longer speak in such definitive terms about it, which makes it difficult. Yes?
Just want to mention that the reason most people at my company have dragged their feet on Teams is that they got used to Slack, and Slack apparently has always had private channels. So I think if you're used to using Slack,
Yes.
you go to Teams, that's different. The other thing is user voice. I voted for the private channel, so there was an update last night that that person, they put out a whole poll on like all these features. Did you see it?
Okay.
And it's kind of a long poll on
Yeah.
all the stuff that they want to do with, it was a poll on like channel features,
Yeah,
right?
it's like moving channels, how do you manage your channels, how do you use your channels, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do something.
Yeah, so moving the ability to move a channel from one team to another or to promote a channel to its own team is also a highly requested feature. What's that?
The governance wasn't set up before the channel was created or put team created.
Well,
and they
but
just put too much underneath of it, and there's dev teams.
that's a possibility, but sometimes a project legitimately grows to it's like, oh my God, this is a whole big thing now. You know, we thought it was going to be this small. We thought it was just going to be channel worthy, and now it's like, oh, we didn't realize
Now it needs to be
all this other stuff, and now it needs to be that. Sure would be great to import all this work that we've already done into that new thing. You know, or if something, for example, we thought we were going to be able to do all of this internally, but it turns out we're going to have to bring people in externally. And this channel was created in a team that does not allow external access, you know, because that's one of the things that I see a lot of, you know. So yeah, I can definitely think of several use cases for moving teams, moving channels around. So yeah, as of right now, there's no capability for that, but I foresee that that's going to change. Any other questions? Comments? You guys are doing great. This is awesome. Any questions online, Dimitri? All right. Moving on. So what's new? We've already covered some of this stuff. So guest access is greatly improved. We talked about that a bit. The SharePoint tab can now display pages or lists. Lists. We can display our lists now. That's awesome. We can display pages, and it does this without any sort of framework. So much so that, by the way, when I was testing this earlier today, I wanted to show this off for a demo later on. So I created a tab that was connected to a page, and I didn't want the news items to be blank, so I clicked on Add News Item, and I was adding a news item right in the Teams interface. And it trimmed off the top of the nav bar so I couldn't hit save at the end. So almost, needs a little tweaking. But once I closed out of Teams, it automatically saved it as a draft, luckily for me. So I just went into SharePoint, hit publish, and then it showed up beautifully. So yeah, that's really cool. And also the way that it's doing the lists, it's giving you the view selector. So you have a drop-down list and you can choose the different views for your lists. So if you have all kinds of crazy custom views, those will now render beautifully in Teams. So I'm very excited about that. Team archiving. Team archiving did not exist before. That is now a thing. You can archive a team, and here's my favorite thing about archiving a team. When you archive a team, it makes it read only. So nothing can be changed in that team when it's read only. And yes, before you ask, it can be reversed. So you can archive, and then you can unarchive.
It's an in-place archive?
It's an in-place archive. Yep, it doesn't move. The only thing it does is it strips out the permissions so nobody can edit it. And it also removes it from the main team list. It removes it from being discoverable. The only place that it's located is under settings. I'll show you that in the demo. Okay.
If you know the URL, still go to it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't disable anything. If they know the URL, they can get to it, and it'll just have, I think it has a display banner that says this is archived and read only. I know it does in Teams. I'm not sure if it does in SharePoint. I'm not sure if they're displaying that banner in SharePoint. Hopefully they are. PSTN outbound calling. So we can make calls going outbound. What we cannot do is receive calls coming inbound. That is coming very, very near future. I have a friend, actually our fellow presenter, David Pileggi, who works for Staples, and he's their inbound calling. Outbound calling is here now. So I can, from Teams, call out to a cell phone or landline, no problem. Dial an actual traditional number. It's beautiful. We've got voicemail.
Can that be blocked?
Can that be blocked? Well, you need an add-on license to do that anyways. So yeah, just don't license it. That's the easy way to block that. And there's probably a setting that could also be turned off in the policy. There are now Teams policies. That's new too. There's a Teams policy and a whole Teams admin console that hosts said policy.
These features are on the individual part of Teams, not in the channels and the actual Teams. So Teams has its Skype for Business stuff, but you can do chat, IM, phone calls, and everything. It's just you. These aren't built into the actual team meetings and groups. Right?
Nope, they are. You can do this right in the Teams interface.
You know, I realize that, but in the Teams interface, there's part of it that's like the Skype for Business, where I'm IMing with someone that has nothing to do with the collaboration piece and stuff. So the voicemail is my own voicemail coming into the Teams client. It's not coming in from the people to view.
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
The same
Yes.
as PSTN outbound.
Correct. Yes. Yes. The PSTN outbound calling, it depends on what kinds of licenses you have. So for example, so I use this in my tenant. I have PSTN dialing, which they now call cloud dialing or something. I forget, but they recently renamed that because apparently nobody knew what a PBX was. So they now just call it like cloud phone or something goofy like that. But there's also dial-up conferencing. And dial-up conferencing is an add-on package that you can add on to your meetings, so that way your meetings have the ability for people to dial in a regular phone number. If you have that, one of the things that you can do, I don't know if you guys know this, but you could do this in Skype for Business as well. If you were in a team and somebody was just having a heck of a time dialing in, you can actually, one of the organizers of the meeting can actually hit add member to the meeting, and they can dial in a phone number, and the meeting will call out to them, ring their phone, and all they have to do is answer. The beautiful thing about that, they don't have to put in any PIN codes, no nothing. Because it was outbound from the meeting, all security is taken care of. Yes, sir.
We have a question online from Naveen. Naveen says, when is Teams admin going to have all of the governance options added, like rolling out DLP policies to specific teams, monitoring all team activities, and so forth?
That's a great question. So they just rolled out the Teams admin role. DLP, for the most part, is done based on URL. So you can do the DLP on all of your SharePoint content just by giving it the URL for the SharePoint side. As far as the conversation component of that, that's the part that I don't know the answer to. Yeah, I'm not sure about the governance around conversations and how exactly that works. That's always been a bit of a mystery.
Third-party apps.
So I think the question I mean is, when will the governance options be available in the Teams admin?
Yeah.
Use Wiretap.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely third-party apps that can do it. When it's native to Microsoft, I'm not sure. I do know that that's a pretty high priority for Microsoft, and I'm sure that they're working on it. But DLP, as far as file protection, is there now. It's the other components that I'm not sure of. So yeah, we also have improved tenant switching. So for any of you that are guests to other people, if you remember a year ago, that was kind of a nightmare switching out. It's still not it's still not as clean as it should be, in my opinion. And I know Dimitri shares this opinion because we've discussed it several times. But it has come a long way from where it was, and we hope that it gets even better. There is now a new admin role. So and this is a brand new announcement, until very recently, even if you were a global admin and you went in and you ran the command of get teams in PowerShell, it would only show you teams that you were a member of. It did not care that you were a global admin. This admin role has the ability to change that. So I find it interesting that they did not enable this admin role by default on the global admin group. So you don't automatically get this as a global admin. But in a way that kind of makes it more flexible. You can create your own group and call it Teams Administrators and assign this role just to that group, and then have a subset. So somebody can be a Teams Administrator without being a global admin. And then you can have global admins that aren't Teams administrators. And of course, you can always join somebody to both of those groups. So it's an interesting approach. For anybody who's done migrations into companies that had groups and then had to upgrade those groups to teams, this was a nightmare. I had to make myself an owner of every single team before moving any data. And it was not a fun process. So happy that that's there. There is also a PowerShell module dedicated to Microsoft Teams. It's a thing. It has very few commands, but it's out there and it works. I actually have a script that I use for provisioning teams that utilizes commands in this. And the reason that I have that script for provisioning teams is so that you can specifically assign a separate alias from display name upon creation of the team, which you cannot do through the GUI in any way, shape, or form. The best thing you can do in the GUI is you can give it the shortest name that you want in the URL first, and then you can rename it after it's created. But if you do that short name that you gave it originally, the rename process only renames the display in one location. It doesn't rename it like the notebook. The notebook is always going to have that short, ugly name, things like that. And there's a few other places where that short, ugly name always rears its ugly head. If you do it by PowerShell, you can get that short name only for the URL and the pretty display name for everything else. And also templates. We can now build a team based on a previously built team. And I will demo that later on. So, and on. There's many, many more. These were just kind of the top ones that I had thought of at this time. Are there any other updates that you guys have heard of, in particular that you'd like to know more about or get some input on? Or any really big ones? Are there any really big ones that have kind of changed how people have utilized Teams? I've been like, I didn't use it until they made that change.
Screen sharing and chat.
Screen sharing and chat, yes. So that's not out yet, but it is coming. I have seen videos of it demoed live. So I know that it's out there, but it's not out yet. It's coming very soon. So yeah, what she's talking about is, as of right now, if two people are having a peer-to-peer chat, just a chat, they're not in a team channel or anything, just a peer-to-peer chat, there's no way to just share a screen. You have to make a phone call first. And then after you make that call, then you have the share screen. But they are going to be changing that They demoed that, I think, at Ignite or in a Microsoft Mechanics video.
They said it's being released to the first ring. Now we'll be cascading for.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So coming soon. Because yeah, I'm with you. That one was very irritating. All right. Anything else? Yeah.
You can only display a modern list or?
Yeah.
From a classic set?
Oh, from a class? No. As a matter of fact, right now, not only does it have to be modern, it's only lists within that team's SharePoint site. So when you open that, that tab, it only shows you what's in that exact SharePoint thing. It's not like the other ones where it says just paste in a URL and we'll show you whatever that is. It's not doing that yet. Maybe that's coming. I'm not sure if we'll ever see classic sites visible there, but I would guess that in the future we would be able to see modern pages and lists in other sites, not just that one. But yeah, excellent question. All right. Let's see what else we got. Feature parity. So Microsoft made an announcement that they had reached feature parity between Teams and Skype for Business. And all the world snickered. All right, cool. I could just see by everybody's reaction here, everybody's already snickering. So yeah, this is not true. They are missing some really big things, which I think is hilarious because they've added some things that are, I don't want to use the word frivolous, but way above and beyond anything that Skype could do or would be useful to a super large user set, and yet left out some really important things like federation, which a lot of people use really heavily all the time. So yeah, federation is the really, really big one that I think they're missing out on. Recordings is an interesting story. So recordings, we're actually recording this meeting right now on Skype for Business. Okay. We're recording that directly on my Surface laptop right now. When we're done, when I hit stop, it will be saving that recording directly to this machine, and it will then wait until I'm plugged in at some later time before it even renders that video. And then after it renders it, I have to go into the options and select which features I want to be included and things like that, and then I can render it again with those specific options. So for example, before we post this to YouTube, we'll actually re-render it and we'll leave out the chat. Because the raw recording actually shows a video of the chat window. So you have like a live chat feed that goes up with that too. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not good. It depends on what you're using the video for. But there are options in there. The new one in Teams, when you hit record, it goes straight into Stream. So it records directly to Stream. So the client machine is not affected at all. Where you hit record button is just semantics. Right now, where you hit record determines which machine the recording goes to. So, yeah.
Did you say the Stream, the Teams get their own Stream channel?
That's correct.
I know it goes into Stream, but then if you want to share it, it's sitting in a channel that only Teams members can see? Or with the URL?
By default, yes, but you have a bunch of flexibility and options there. It's interesting, Dimitri and I were actually just talking about this because next month we're going to be using Teams to do our recordings. And the only reason we're not doing it now is because I'm going to be doing a bunch of demos and I didn't want the recording to get in the way of our demos. So yes, by default, it dumps it to the team, to the stream, that channel that's associated with that team. Boy, they make this difficult to say. But you can go in and you can join a stream video to multiple channels. And very importantly, you can download it. You can actually download it and take it entirely out of stream and put it elsewhere, which is what we'll be doing, because we'll be downloading it to then put it into YouTube.
And if you left it in Teams, if you left it in stream and just said to a broader audience than is a part of the team, here, go look at this stream video.
Absolutely.
You have to share it. I don't think so.
No.
They can do it through the URL.
If it's in the same channel, if it's in the same channel or the same team that you recorded it in, you don't have to take any further action. It's automatically shared out to the entire team that meeting was in. Not outside that team, no.
Okay.
I don't
No.
think that's true. I think I found the channels do permissions, I think it's a group. In stream, groups have the permissions, channels don't, I don't think.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. It's right. So the channel that I was referring to there was a team channel, not a stream channel. And thank you, Microsoft, for making these conversations really fun. Yeah. Yes, you are absolutely correct.
In stream, the channels, I think, don't have permissioning.
Correct. And actually, so to that point, in both, channels don't have permissioning right now. Because you can't permission in a Teams channel, you can't permission in a stream channel. So yes, that's correct.
That would mean that a recording you did is automatically being shared with anyone.
No, it's only shared with the people that you recorded the channel in.
I don't know, check on most of it.
Okay. So one of the things you can do, maybe this will help clarify it. What we're talking about here is posting a meeting within a team. So one of the great things that you can do with Teams is you can have a meeting published right in the team in a specific channel in that team. And when you do that, you don't have to invite everybody in the team. They'll just see it in the conversation feed, and anybody who sees that will then be able to join it. Okay? If that meeting is then recorded, it will say right in that same conversation thread, it will say this meeting was recorded. And after that meeting ends, it will actually say, that's where you'll see the display status. It'll say rendering video. And then when it's done rendering the video, it'll say click here to watch the video. Yes, sir.
So I just pulled up the settings to answer your question. So when you go into Streams to create a new stream channel, you have two options. You can make it company-wide, or you can make it group-specific.
Yeah.
So anything that you do from Microsoft Teams will be tied to that team.
Group specific.
Exactly. There's a group's behind that team.
Okay, so then,
Right.
even though I had the URL for that, if I sent it out to the whole company and said, watch this video, if they weren't part of that team, they wouldn't be able to see it. I'd have to.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I have to
But
pull
you
it out and
you
share
wouldn't
it.
necessarily have to share it out so much. You could just go to the video and say, enable this video on the company-wide, on a previously existing company-wide channel. And then anybody who has any subscription notifications to those channels would receive it through those normal means.
But when the team specific group in stream is limited to team members.
That's
and
correct.
That's how
Yes.
it's automatically created.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And as of right now, that's the group that it posts to. Yeah. All right. So that's clear as mud to everybody, right? Awesome. The one other thing I wanted to call out here, Microsoft recently published, and I was all excited because I saw this tweet, like, we now have whiteboards in Teams. And I was like, awesome. I've been waiting for whiteboards in Teams. And I know Microsoft recently released a Microsoft Whiteboard app. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it's a completely independent standalone app. It's completely free. It's available in the Windows Store and I think on mobile devices. I'm not sure about the mobile devices, but I think it's on mobile devices. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that's what's going to replace the thing. And the answer is no. That app has nothing to do with the tweet that went out saying this. And as a matter of fact, the one that they're talking about is a third-party app. It's not owned by Microsoft. And I couldn't get it to work. But that said, I did very little testing or research on it. I just tried to click on it and see if I could really quickly make it go, and the answer was no. But there is a whiteboard in there, and it supposedly works. So be aware. Any other questions on feature parity? Actually, I have a question for you guys. Is there anything else that I'm missing on the feature parity? Is there anything that you guys can think of that would hold you or your company back from moving from Skype for Business to Teams that I haven't mentioned here? Because I'm really interested in hearing this.
Actually, a correction. You can receive PSTN calls in Teams. You have to make a back-end change.
Right, and that back-end change has not been posted publicly yet. It's not in. It's.
We had a couple of weeks ago. We looked at it.
Oh yeah.
Looked it up.
So my tenant is set for the first release ring, and my tenant does not have it yet. So maybe they're rolling it out now, in which case I'm very excited to hear that. I'm really looking forward to it. But as of, yeah, it's definitely not in GA, and it's not completely distributed to first release yet for receiving PSTN calls. I'm very certain of that one because I can't wait for that. Once that switch is there, I'm going to be checking it off. Yes, I do. Yep. Yeah. My quote unquote office phone is a Microsoft hosted phone number, and it rings to Skype for Business right now. And I would love for it to stop ringing to Skype for Business and start ringing to Teams. Yes?
I don't know what federation is.
So yeah, that's a great question. So federation is basically the ability to communicate with people outside of your company via Skype for Business or Microsoft Teams. So right now, for example, earlier today, Rachel and I were having a conversation on Skype for Business. We don't work for the same company. We're both running open federation, so we didn't have to make any changes to our servers or anything. It just went. And we could do that just by putting in our SIP address, a full SIP address. So when you do internal, you just have to type a couple of letters and it'll pull it out of the Exchange address book. When you do external, you just need to put in a full SIP address, which hopefully is their SMTP address. Not always, but usually. And then you can chat with them that way. So that's what federation is. And right now in Teams, you cannot do that. There's no capability for doing that. It gets a little confusing in Teams because they do allow guest access. So you can add someone as a guest. And if you add someone as a guest, then it appears like you're IMing with them, but they only see those notices when they have switched their client into your tenant, which is really confusing. And that's why a lot of people it kind of looks like they have federation, but they don't. What they have is they have guest access. And it's very different because you have to actively add each of those people.
For Skype Business, you can chat.
Yep.
It'll just pop up.
Yep.
It's running.
Now, Mass DOT is not, or, yeah, the government is not running Open Federation on their tenant. I am very aware of that.
You mentioned that there is improved tenant switching there.
Yes.
Yeah, when we get to the demo, so we can show that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we can switch tenants. That's why we're not recording. If we were recording, when I switch tenants, it'll break the recording. All right. Any other questions? All right. Let me know, guys, because this is, I wrote down a bunch of things here, but these are all just conversation starters as far as I'm concerned. So, all right. So the meeting object, we kind of talked a lot about this, but I think this is one of my favorite features in Teams, is the fact that you can publish a meeting into Teams. It becomes, they call it the meeting object, because it becomes an entity within the conversation thread. And what you can do with that is, prior to the meeting, you can use that as a collection, as a center point for having a discussion about, hey, what should the agenda be? Hey, can we add this to the agenda? Hey, can you have this report prepared for us to go over during this meeting? Things like that. You kind of have this kind of entity that the meeting becomes. So the meeting is no longer just a flash in time. It's an entity prior to the meeting that you can use to collaborate and gather materials. And even during the meeting, you can actually reply right within that thread. You know, so if you have somebody who's playing the part of scribe and taking meeting minutes, they can take those meeting minutes right within. I am projecting, right? Okay. They can take their meeting minutes in real time, and people who are remote or something can actually see it. Maybe they can't join, but they can just kind of read along or whichever. And most importantly, if your scribe is doing a good job, of course, after the meeting, you can always go back and review, and they're right there. Everything's in line. You know, so you kind of have a capture point for these meetings. It's really a whole new way of looking at how your meetings can be conducted and recorded, and possibly even some of the metrics on whether or not it's productive. I'm not going to go into the whole my analytics things, which is a whole different component about measuring productivity of things. That's out of scope for this, but it's a really interesting concept, and it's one of the things that I've been telling my clients to start implementing, at least for their internal meetings, to help drive adoption of the actual Teams client. So if you're one of those companies, or if you have one of those companies as one of your clients that's using Teams mostly just for like organizing files, like, yeah, we like having separate silos for all of our files now, and that's good, and we're going to sync those down, and now we're never going to use the Teams interface. I've seen that happen a couple of times. You know, implementing the meetings within those channels, it's a good way to get people to, they'll start to see that, and then all this other stuff just happens to be attached. So yeah, I wanted to mention that. I think it's a really, really big thing that's catching a lot of people's attention. Anybody have any questions on that? Any experiences with that? You like it?
I do, yeah. My development team's all across the country, so we,
Nice.
for collaboration purposes, we're always with them. We did today. We shared a screen right afterwards. The client said, "Hey, this is what we took down. You get this all down right." I said, "Yep."
Yeah.
And then easy takeaway. We know where we're going. We don't need to send out action items afterwards. It's very rude.
Right.
Everyone already knows what they're doing.
Yep.
Remind me later to ask you about my analytics for Teams.
Okay.
I didn't know that was possible.
Yep. Sure. All right. Anything else on meetings?
About earlier, there's a meeting notes thing you can put in there. It's
Yes, meeting notes.
unfortunately, and you can't go off of that. So I don't know if I'm using it. I tried it yesterday.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I hadn't mentioned that. One of the other changes, I should have put this on my change slide, is meeting notes. Meeting notes in Teams have gone, meeting notes in Outlook were OneDrive driven, OneNote driven. Meeting notes in Teams are wiki driven. And the wiki, honestly, I don't want to talk too much about the wiki because I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm not using it. I'm not using it mostly for the reasons Rachel mentioned. It doesn't seem to have any ability to synchronize offline, and also I'm just a diehard OneNote guy, so it's going to take a lot to pry me away from the habit of using OneNote. But there are some interesting things about it, and I'll show some of that when we do the demos later on. It does kind of have this automatic aggregation thing going for it, where you can kind of pull together your personal notes versus team-based notes. So kind of no matter where they were, it gives you a single view to see them. I don't know. It's weird, but I'll show you guys. You can make your own decisions. Yes?
Just curious why they put the wiki in here, because everybody, we've been like removing it from all the channels, like, it's like everybody likes it.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't speak to why Microsoft does what they do. That's a very dangerous road. I honestly don't know. I don't know. I was kind of baffled by it when I first saw it. It did not come with the original rollout of Teams. I think if you go back and you look at the video that I did last year, I don't think there was a wiki. And then all of a sudden it got injected in there.
A lot of Confluence users, that's Confluence
Oh,
wiki, and they're,
yep.
you know,
I'm familiar with
they
Confluence.
see the wiki and Shift and Teams, and they told me that it's terrible.
Yeah.
I can't really speak to it myself, because I don't seem to like it.
It's very different than Confluence. Confluence is a very large kind of enterprise scale wiki that sometimes pretends to be an intranet site, frequently pretends to be an intranet site. Yeah, that's a very apples to oranges sort of comparison. Apples to oranges really isn't even fair. It's like peas to oranges or something. It's dramatically different. But yeah, they share the name wiki, but it's not the same at all. So let's talk about migration. What does migration look like to Teams? So I want to talk, I'm sure you guys know a lot about, there are lots of ways to move files from one SharePoint site to another SharePoint site. If you guys don't know, Microsoft actually has a SharePoint migration tool that you can now use. I've actually used it a handful of times, and it's pretty powerful. I've been really impressed by it, especially the new version 2.0 has actually been really good. I think they're on 2.1 now. They definitely polished a lot of the edges there, and it uses Azure Blob Storage, which is pretty fast, which is very nice. But I'm going to describe something very different here. Okay, the base concept I wanted to talk about here is, first off, what do you want to do with it? So migration to Teams, you need to think about what you want to do with it. Like maybe you're using it to replace Skype. It's possible that you could roll out a Teams implementation and not touch the file side. Just don't do anything with it. We're not using Teams for that. We just want to use it for chat. We want to use those conversation threads. We want a persistent chat room for all of these different groups. We like the different channels. You can use it just for that and never touch the files. Okay. You could say, hey, you know what? We're tired of dealing with our FTP site. Let's just use it for external. And we're not going to use it for chat at all, but just files, and even the files only external. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of start to use Teams that are maybe kind of low-hanging fruit or kind of dipping your toe in the water without going all in. And maybe you want to do that. There's a couple of different reasons you may want to do that. Maybe you can't get sign-off from higher ups to go all in or all in on part of it. Maybe it's easier to convince them for a small little sliver. Let's try it with just this group and just using the chat. You know, what if we just use chat and we just use it for our sales teams because they're never in the office? You know, they're always out and about and we need to be able to get in touch with them. You know, or I have another client where they just want to use it for their maintenance staff. You know, we have maintenance guys that are always running around and they wanted them to be able to take a picture of something and share it. You know, this is what that busted pipe looks like. This is what I'm dealing with here. This is why I'm not going to make it to that meeting. Click. You know, picture's worth 1,000 words. Teams is a great way to, you know, kind of share that picture with your group and say, hey, it's a bigger problem than you thought, you know? Or maybe you're going all in and you want to reorganize the entire file structure, you know? Maybe use it as an opportunity to say, you know what, maybe we don't want one monolithic file repository and instead silo that out into small, easily consumable pieces. That makes sense to you guys? So one of the potential options I wanted to talk about is file storage. You can roll out Teams and never move a single file and still have them use Teams to collaborate on files. Because there's an option in the Files tab to add cloud storage. And the very first option in adding cloud storage, SharePoint. So if you're already using SharePoint and you don't want to mess with that structure, or maybe, again, maybe you just want to dip your toe in what Teams looks like, you can just link to existing document libraries. Okay, and you can link to multiples of them in widely different places because Teams doesn't care. I think this is one of the most powerful features of it, is you don't have to reorganize. Instead, you can actually take a chaotic mess and just you're essentially pulling shortcuts together. You're putting a collection of shortcuts together. This is where all of the files related to this one client exist. Whoops. You know, and they don't have to search high and low. And not only can you do that within SharePoint, but maybe some of those files exist in some random Dropbox account. Maybe they exist in multiple Dropbox accounts. Oh my God. But even Dropbox doesn't have a solution for how to deal with files that live in multiple Dropbox accounts. Teams does. And you can mix all of these medias between all of the different cloud storage devices. You guys don't have to do it this way, but it's a possibility. And it's incredibly powerful. Yes.
So are you saying like if you do that, when they go into the Files tab, they still have their own Teams file? You're
Yes.
just bringing in the other files from SharePoint. But you can't make all your files from Teams go into.
So I would discourage you from saying you're bringing in the other teams, because really you're not moving a thing. What you're doing, yeah, exactly. You're surfacing it. You're giving them a central location to access it. Think of it as like a file access portal.
But you're not closing off files for that.
How does that keep happening?
Being created in the files area, which is their separate SharePoint site.
Yep.
You can't change that.
What do you mean you can't change that?
You can't say that all the files that are created in this team are gonna go into a different SharePoint
Oh, like
site.
reroute?
Yeah.
There's no way to enforce that right now, unfortunately. I think that would be awesome. Somebody should totally make that. I'm behind that. If you put that in as a user voice, I will vote that up.
I don't have to write it. Somebody else.
Yeah, I was actually kind of hoping that when Microsoft rolled out Teams, that they would have the ability to just kind of redirect that default library and say, I don't want anybody to create in this default library. But unfortunately, that default library is kind of the bane of my existence. There's no way to change it. You can't delete it. You can't rename it. You can't rename the default folder. You can't stop it from making a general folder.
Because those files don't surface easily in your SharePoint, in your other SharePoint environment.
They should. It'll show up in search.
Yeah, well, they were just not doing it right.
Okay. Yeah, it'll show up in search, and it'll show up in.
But it's under different site. It's under
Sure.
different
Yes.
site.
Yeah. You have to do. You have
the other
to.
one.
You have to deal with cross-site
Yeah.
accessibility. That is correct. Yes, but those challenges are no different with Teams than they would be if you had two classic SharePoint site collections. You know, if you had two SharePoint site collections, you're solving the same problem there. So you're not wrong. It's the same problem that already exists. It is brought to a higher level because once people start implementing Teams, there tends to be a lot more of them. You get a lot more site collections. But generally, that's a good thing because in the end, the goal is that amounts to better security. It won't necessarily, but it has the possibility of. Yes?
So when you display another SharePoint file in your team, permissions stay with the SharePoint?
Correct. Yes, but so that's an important point, and I'm glad you asked that. So the question was, do the permissions stay in place? When you add cloud storage to the Files tab, you're not changing permissions. Okay, it does absolutely zero to the permissions. It's the same as putting a shortcut on somebody's desktop to a file share. Just putting the shortcut there doesn't mean that they're granted access.
Does it say no, you don't have access?
Yep, it'll say you don't have access.
What about like the external stuff? Like,
Same thing. Same thing. They have to be granted. So the external stuff it's slightly different in that if I join to a site and it has a link to a box repository, the first time I click on that box, it's going to prompt me for my username and password to Box. And that username and password that I give it needs to have access to whatever that file store is, or else Box will do whatever Box does.
And then the next time, you're already logged in.
Yeah, you only have to do that once per vendor.
Will Teams search into that content? External file. Let's say you got Dropbox.
Oh, well, Teams, no. The point is to pull it all together.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. In order to aggregate the search, many additional hoops have to be jumped through, and yeah. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's different. You need to connect the indexing into that remote source. It will, however, search all of the SharePoint stuff. But it couldn't do that before, and now at least you have shortcuts to them all in one place. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, we find it useful to do the cloud storage and add SharePoint because otherwise, like different teams might have the same file that they need to access, and we don't want to have a copy in this team's files, another copy in this other team's files. So we'll have them store it in one place and then do the cloud storage so that they're all working off of the same
Perfect.
ones.
Yeah.
We're working well for that.
That's great. Yeah. Any other questions about this methodology. Okay. And again, this is just an option. It's an idea, something to toss around. It does have some caveats. So when you're saving into Teams, if you're saving from an outside source and saving into Teams, like say that outside source is Outlook, Outlook won't see any of those shortcuts. It doesn't recognize them. It will only save it directly to that default document library that can't be redirected, renamed, or restructured. So that's a really big pitfall to this technique. So be aware of that. Also, even if you don't use this technique, one of the pitfalls is if you're saving an attachment from Outlook into a team, even though you have that beautiful general folder, it won't let you browse the folders. It only dumps it directly into the root of the shared document library. And because when you go into the team and the file view, it always defaults to a folder named after the channel, you won't see the document. You have to go up a folder level. Yeah, you'll see it in SharePoint.
You can do a link to the root.
And by the way, yes, that's exactly what I was just going to say. The workaround for this is you can add a shared cloud storage product for SharePoint and link it to itself, and then that link acts as basically a go up one level. Yeah, it's goofy. Your face is perfectly justified, ma'am. You shouldn't have to do that. They should just have an up one button, but they don't, so that works. So yeah.
Can you build flows to go to those?
Yeah, yeah. You could make a flow to do all kinds of crazy stuff to try to correct some of that. Yep, absolutely.
You add metadata to the team so it asks the channel name. So it prompts them to upload it.
I don't know the answer to that, Bill. You and your tricky questions. So Bill asked if you could add metadata to the team so that it prompts the user when they save.
Oh, so you can add certain
Right.
keywords.
So you could add the keyword that then her flow, so Bill wants to prompt for metadata that her flow will then pick up on and then tell it which folder to put it in. There you go. The two of you together have solved the problem. Or they could just, add a folder view and be done with it. All right. So I wanted to go over a couple of quick myths around Microsoft Teams. These are things that I've heard discussed out in the wild, and I've even seen some professional presenters say some of these things that are not true about Teams. So I wanted to get out there and bash some of these myths. So the big one is you can't change a guest's display name. So when you first add a guest, and I'll give you this is difficult and it's easy to miss. When you first add an external user to a team for the very first time, they haven't been added to any other team before, it'll give you a prompt that says add user as guest. If you select that, you then get a little tiny pencil emblem that shows up next to their name. If you click on that pencil, you can then edit the display name of the user. If at that point you misspell the display name or you decide you want to change it later, but you've already hit add, you have to go into Azure. So this myth is true in the fact that not all team owners will have the access to do this. It's also important to know that because the way that guest access works, if a guest is being added to multiple teams, when they're added to the second team, you don't even get the option for that pencil because they've already been added into Azure AD, so that entry is already there.
Does it require the team admin role, or is that?
No, because I haven't even enabled that yet. And so no, it does not. It requires a global admin role or possibly user management. I want to test to see if user management can access the team's Active Directory. I don't know if that's possible or not. I would hope that it could. Dimitri's nodding that it can, so I'm going to take his word for it that it can, so that's good. And even if that one can't, you can always build your own role-based access permissions and assign that to a group, and you could create a group that can do just that. I'm not sure how granular you can get with it, but there are other ways to do that. And then the other thing is you can't resend a guest invite. Again, you can, but not from Teams. It's actually on the same exact page. So in that same exact page, this page is part of the Azure AD portal. The super clean URL for this page is right there at the bottom. Isn't that nice and easy? Super easy. And then if you just click this edit button, so what you would do is you would go, so the long way to get to this, if you're not going to type in that URL, I mean, come on. You could go to the AD portal, the tenant portal. From the tenant portal, you go to the Azure AD portal, which is linked right in there. And then from there, you go to users access. Users and, what's it called? Users and groups, maybe?
Users and groups.
Yeah, users and groups.
Type in their.
And then you can do a search in there. That will display all of your internal users and all of your guest users. And you can click on any one of those guest users, and you'll find this wonderful information here where you can go in and rename things. That was not the laser pointer. What happened? Oh no. There we go. All right. So if the invitation has not been accepted, this button is here. You get a resend invitation option. If they already accepted it, there's no resend invitation. So if the user's already accepted the invitation, but you get a report like, I don't know how to access it, or I don't know how to get there, you could just go into Teams and say, get link to team, and email them that link, and they can hop right in from that. Is that screen blinking black just on occasion? Okay, weird. All right. Yes?
So when you invite an external user and email bounces, you have no way of knowing who it is? You just come back.
Correct. You would have no way of knowing. For example, this user that I made up for here, this would have bounced because I just typed Mike and then a bunch of keywords and then at Gmail.
It would say invitation not accepted.
Correct. Yes. This is going to say invitation not accepted forever for this particular user, so I can use it as my demo. Yeah.
There would be nothing there if you did not invite them, correct? It would be no, it would be saying no. There'd be no data right there.
Before this.
Because that identity page, this page shows up in Azure AD no matter what, but that resend invitation accepted, that piece of this wouldn't even be there.
How would that user have, oh, if you added them directly into Azure AD, right?
What I'm saying is, for someone that we haven't, let's say, normally user,
yeah,
you would never see this.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're a licensed user.
Only an external user, you're ever going to see this.
Correct.
Because that screen is just normal Azure AD.
Correct.
For all users.
Correct.
So it's like a maintenance thing, maybe so long ago, figure this stuff out.
If you want.
So you can just search for that, the invitation accepted.
So a
users
date
and figure out people that have.
sent out? No date, is there a date behind it when it was sent?
We could take a look at the demo. This is a tiny slice of the information that's available in Azure AD. It's maybe not real clear, actually, now that I realize this. It's only this part between these two lines that was actually a screenshot from Azure AD. Okay. There's a bunch of other information above and below that in Azure AD. All right. So myth is busted. Slide not found. All right, and then bunches of references. So I'm going to switch over real quick. All right. So one of the things we were talking about wikis. Right? You guys all still see that? Good. All right, sales general. So if I go down here, all of these that are up here are teams that I have favorited. So these are all my favorite teams. Lots and lots of favorite teams. And then I have a more section down here. The more section is always going to be an alphabetical list of every team that is not listed as a favorite. Okay. But then if I go down here and I click on this cog, this shows me the back end of all of the teams. It allows me to search for teams, and it also shows me how many active teams I have. And if I collapse that, it'll show me archived teams. So these are my archived teams. This is also the interface that you would use to archive a team. So if I wanted to archive AMS, I would just go over here, and there's your archive team button. To my knowledge, this is the only place where that button lives. I hope to see that more prevalent in other locations in the future. So that's where archive team is. And likewise, if I go to an archived team like Agios, I have restore team. So restore team would take it out of its archiving state.
Is it possible to disconnect the group and the team?
No.
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 So some
The group is kind of the beating heart of the team.
Well, but the email behind it, that group, the calendar aspect of it, some people might want to keep that availability without the team. Just didn't know if it's possible to do that. You can manage it and create it easily. But.
No. Now you got me thinking, huh?
You don't have to solve it.
Yeah, no. So the answer is no. So if I were to open Agios, you'll see up here, this team was archived, so you can't make any changes. Close out of this other status to clean this up a little bit. All right. And if we go to Agios and we look at their Files tab, here's an example of what I was talking about for the files, okay? So the policy that I implemented with these guys is I don't want any files being stored in this default document library. We just wanted to ignore it, okay? Yes?
We have an online question from the team. When you delete a team, what is the restore time period?
Delete a team?
Archive it.
Delete or
Good
archive?
question, you said delete.
So if you delete a team, I don't know.
If you do a channel, I know, unfortunately, it's pretty quick. So second? Yeah. I don't
I think they meant once you delete, how long you have it.
Yeah, right. It was just-
I don't know where, I don't even know where the team recycle bin is. So I know the SharePoint site would go to the traditional SharePoint recycle bin, and you can go in and grab that out of there. But if you were to do that separately from the fact that it were a team, life could get complicated. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I could delete this one.
I'm just gonna try it.
I deleted one like maybe earlier this week. Or I thought I had one from
So
one.
first off, you get this beautiful message saying, are you sure? Like you have to sign off on it. That's pretty cool. I understand everything will be deleted. You have to check the box in order to delete the team. And the team is gone. Does it appear over here? Where did you restore it from?
To go to the settings, manage team. This is for a channel though. And the channel will have to leave it listed.
So wait, was a channel deleted or a?
Channel.
Oh, yeah.
That's what, that's, we did that.
Yeah.
So that's what we did once. Even though
So yeah, short answer is I don't know. I'd have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure if there's a recycle bin for Teams, and if there is, I definitely don't know what the time period is on it. I'm not seeing anything in here. Perhaps a PowerShell-based solution.
It's held 90 days until it's permanently deleted.
What's that?
Straight from, we're held for 30 days.
Held for 30 days?
And you have to request it. You wait 24 hours for a request to get it.
Oh, so delete it, wait 24 hours, and then file a request with Microsoft?
There's actually a PowerShell command.
There's a PowerShell command. Okay. Awesome. All right. So we're actually running a little short on time. What would you guys like to see demoed? Anything? Anybody?
that's the coolest new feature.
What's the coolest new feature? I think the coolest new feature is the ability to publish lists. Just because I make lots of lists. Where did I do that? I think I did it in Office Alfredo. Yeah. So I made this list called Mailbox Inventory. And if I click right here, you can see my list. And here's the default all items view, where I can select by database, by type. So click on by type. Here are all my items grouped by type in my SharePoint list. So this is really cool. What I really like about this is that it's pretty much a mirror image to what it looks like in SharePoint. And the demos that I've seen from Ignite show a very similar view to this coming soon for files. So soon files will have this, and also as part of that, there will be a sync button right in Teams for the files. That's one of the things that I'm most excited about. All right. There seemed to be a lot of interest. In, was it Azure Active Directory? Of course it's at the bottom. Why wouldn't it be at the bottom? So if we jump into Azure AD portal, this is where some of that fancy user management. Uh-oh. The user management part is not displaying right now. That's creepy. Wow. Okay. So if I go here and then I just type in Mike, you'll see the two accounts. Here's the invited user that I made up before. If I click on that user, we can see that he's never signed on. He's a member of one group. And here's all of the, here's where that screenshot came from. And also, importantly, this is also where you can block an external user from signing in. This is a lot better option than hitting that panic button and just deleting them from the group. Know that when you delete them from the group, their account is still kind of active. I mean, if that account has access to other, and by group I mean team, if that account has access to other teams, then it will be unaffected. But if I suspect that there's a problem with a user or an account, I can go here, I can just change the block sign in. Boom, let's make that yes. Hit save. And now this account can't log in to anything, anywhere, no matter what. And yet, I haven't changed any of the infrastructure. So this is a great option for, we think something's wrong, but we're not sure. That's your switch. You know, hit that, stop the bleeding, do your investigation, figure out what's going on, and then you can decide what the next step is. And should, okay, everything's clear. It turns out he just forgot his password or whatever, you know, you could turn it back on and everything's fine. Nothing has to be restructured or reinvented. It's very important that you notice when this is in edit mode, you can never change this username and you can never change the object ID. These are not editable things. The significance of that is if you delete this account and then decide, oh, you know what, that was a mistake, let's re-add them. When they're re-added, they get a new object ID. They will never, ever get the old object ID. So that means any references to that account are now broken. Those are now widows. So use the block sign-in status if there's an issue.
Do you know if it's similar to normal accounts where it goes into a cycle and you can cover it, or do you have a test around it?
I'm not sure if Azure AD has a recycle bin like Windows AD does. I don't know. Do you know the answer to that, Dimitri? Not sure. Anything else anybody wants to see? Yes.
What's the best way, or is there another way other than going into Teams and displaying all the teams? What's the best way to get a list of all the teams?
Are you a global admin?
Yeah.
So the best way is to go into the new SharePoint portal. So you would go here, go to SharePoint. Now, pleased to note that when you land here, this portal will never display Teams. So you got to click on this one. It says try the preview. And then when you try the preview, you can then get a list of all of your active sites. see if my deleted. Template, it went there. Hey, look at that. Can I recover? What can I do with that? I can highlight it apparently. And customize columns. That doesn't help me. Yeah, so this is where you would see all of those. This is where you see all my misspellings. There's like no options to do anything. It's just here taunting me. So I can confirm that it's been deleted. It is on its way out the door.
If it's not there, likely they can't recover it.
Yeah. So this view here, active sites, this is your best bet for that. And then you can do filters. But this is going to be your most complete list, especially for teams and groups. Yes?
You can't tell it. Oh, you can tell.
Yeah, it lists the name of the template. Unfortunately, they've used really crappy names for the templates, but it will tell you the name of the template. It's accurately relaying the crappy name of the template, if that helps.
But the group owner thing, so like, it just says group owner, does it say, that's not the first group.
So these ones that say group owners, those are because those are teams.
This is actually easier to do in PowerShell.
Yeah, agreed.
You can't even get the owner information here, nor can you reassign users. It's a real, you can't delete a team site and then just nothing in.
So pleased to note, I clicked a button that said try the preview before we got here. The fact that these are even visible is a huge step up from where it was before. Because before, we were completely blind. There was no way, other than PowerShell, to view teams and groups. All right. So, unless there are...
I have
Yes.
one very quick one.
Yes.
Let's say you've got series of files, create a series of folders, you've got a file and a folder buried deep, deep down in one. You just want to create a link. Because that file exists, I want to use it somewhere else in the same team, or the next question, across another team. How are you supposed to create something like a link between the existing files?
So, they used to have an option called copy path, but now they don't. The best way to do that is to actually open it, and then right here, copy path.
Right, that copies it. Now paste it into another file folder somewhere else and create that file fragment.
So for that, your file repository has to have the link capability enabled, which is sometimes a separate setting. But yeah, you can do that.
I mean, it's use case, I've got, if someone's created this file, I just don't want to have to create a copy of it, another stream, another channel, just create a link. Can we do it in Teams? It seems much harder than
It is way hard. I completely agree with that statement right there. I wish in that share interface, they have all these different share options now. I really wish one of the share interface options was don't create a security entity, just give me a copy of the path. That would be fantastic. But it's not. But you can do this, and then you can hop over to a site. Give me a something maybe. This is going to be slow. Yeah. We're in the Microsoft building. You'd think it would load faster, right? Nope, wrong button. Here, link. So from the new option, I can do a link and then paste. Oh, or not. File. Paste. Create. Something went wrong. So that doesn't work. It could be just trimming parts of this URL or some sort of special formatting on the URL. Yeah, I don't know. Not sure. I've actually never used this linking system because it creates security issues. Very problematic. All right, so unfortunately, we've run out of time. There's lots and lots of stuff in Teams, and I can't possibly squeeze it all into a session like this. So I am available, though. So yeah, if you guys have more questions, feel free to reach out. I will also be at SharePoint Saturday, which is in 2 days. So I hope to see you guys there. Stop by. I'm going to be giving the same talk, but as you guys can imagine, it's probably not going to be exactly the same talk. It's going to be very interactive. So, you know, stop by, and even if you guys don't see me, don't sweat it. I'll be there. You can grab me in the hallway and ask your questions there or whenever. All right? Thanks a lot, guys. Sorry, I ran late.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so just a few more slides. So we like to share upcoming community events. As Mike just mentioned, SharePoint Saturday is this upcoming Saturday. If you've never been to a SharePoint Saturday, they're awesome. It's a full day of free sessions just like these. Each session is about 75 minutes or so. There's usually about 5 or 6 sessions happening in parallel, so you choose your own path throughout the day. And then at the end, there's always a bunch of raffle prizes, as well as everyone coming together and having a drink or two nearby. So if you haven't signed up, please do. It's a completely free event, and it's happening in 2 days. I'm also going to be speaking on a different topic there, as well as a lot of other local people, as well as people traveling in from all over the country and Canada. And actually sub-speaking, so you add UK to the list. So a couple of more things. In November, we have a developer boot camp. So if you're interested, take a look there. Bring your laptop, expect to write code. It's a great informative session. And then later in December, there's a SharePoint Expo that's being hosted. I believe it's actually going to be in this building as well.
Yes, it is.
And check it out. And SharePoint Saturday is taking place in the same building, so it's pretty nearby.
And that expo is hosted by our sponsor, Mr. Chris Bortles, who is a wonderful and highly informed individual. So any of those questions you guys come to me or hit them up.
Does anyone else know of any upcoming events or expos or anything else?
I just want to mention, I listened in on the Office 365 community call last night. It was this champions program, and it was awesome. It was really did a really good job. Yeah, I guess they have a monthly call, Teams live broadcast, and they have like a morning and an evening session, and it was really good. So I'm going to try to tune in next time. It's Microsoft. They have like a free Champions Office 365 Champions program, but you mentioned they're going to have a new like certification program so that you can do this like Office 365 what's it called, adoption specialist certification or something like that. It's starting in December, so forward.
Yeah, I'm actually signed up for that. And, actually, I'll tweet out the link to that, where you guys can sign up for the Champions program. So, I'm sure that happens.
So there's, we're lucky enough to have a lot of user groups in this area. If you're interested in any of these related technologies, please check them out. We do have an announcement we'll be making about a new collaboration with the Boston SharePoint user group, but we're still working out the details, so we're not going to talk about that yet. So next session, so we're going to be hosting the next session in downtown Boston by North Station, over in the WeWork office, like right there on Portland Street above the Harp. So we're gonna have a great presentation by Jim Lennox, talking about, what are Azure functions, what are Azure Logic apps, how do you build them using Visual Studio Code. It's gonna be a little bit more technical in nature, but that being said, it's also really gonna be like an entry-level course into what this is, what it means, and how this has really changed since it launched years ago. So definitely an interesting session, even if you're not a developer yourself. I think you'll walk away with an understanding of, you don't need to spin up a full virtual machine to run code that interacts with SharePoint and Azure and whatever else that you're pulling together. So does anyone have any problems or tips or anything interesting that you've learned about in the cloud since we've last met? Sure.
So, anything in SharePoint is needed to the name is displayed. Is there a way to not have it go to Bill into them? We don't use Bill, and people try and go back to the site, and then it says you can come there. So it just throws people off. I just want to display it.
Yeah, if you don't have Dell turned on as a company,
We have it on, or we
you lost.
Well, I think it's on, but when you go try and go back,
We have turned off his office graph, because we're so worried about people finding documents they're not supposed to, people are logging on.
So you're going to in-ship or
yeah, anything, yeah, I guess it's.
like from Outlook, I know that if you don't have Dell for sales, so I'm going to have an 11. I can see it, it'll take a Dell. Any other user that clicks on it and tries to navigate to it, it won't even give them the option. Because they don't have Dell as permissions in their account. So as a licensed user, turn on Dell and
Yeah, one more thing to add to that. I believe if you go to the user profile configuration in your SharePoint Online admin, I believe there is one setting buried in there where you specify if you want the new profile experience or the old profile experience. The old profile experience is akin to SharePoint 2013 on-prem experiences. I don't know if that feature, that option is still there because Microsoft's trying to get rid of the old stuff. But take a look, that might be worth exploring.
I like a lot of the stuff and it pops up the names on it.
Yeah.
But I guess when people click it and go there, then.
Yeah. One more part is you could also have Delve enabled for user profile features without having the Office Graph enabled. So they wouldn't see the auto discovery information, but you can still do like the org charts, free busy information, and that as well.
But the only thing we have turned off is Office Graph. Delve is assigned, so what you're saying is correct.
It'd be a good ticket for Microsoft. I mean, no matter what you do, you shouldn't have an error message, right? So let Microsoft troubleshoot it. Sorry. Anyone else have any problems or tips?
Yeah. Not really a problem, but everybody knows that T-Bot is gone now.
Oh.
T-Bot is now help. It's called help, but
They
T-Bot,
renamed it.
they renamed it to help, and the conversations don't work anymore. So it's not a bot anymore.
I was not aware, but good to know.
We've been like promoting people to go to T-Bot, and it's kind of embarrassing because T-Bot is not there.
Is anyone here a CSP partner?
Supposedly.
Okay. I have a tip to share, but it's not going to apply to everyone else, so I'll save it. Is anyone hiring or looking for work?
I'm hiring 5 developers, Azure, AWS, You're looking for that.
Let's talk after. We might be able to help. Anyone else looking for work or looking to hire?
I have some vacancies. If anybody's looking for Teams consulting or architecture work, I have some open time. So, just put it out there.
All right, so let's dive into the raffle. So we have our usual Amazon gift cards. We also have this brand new Microsoft Teams backpack, courtesy of the Microsoft Teams team. So in past years we've done raffle tickets, but since we've moved on from that, we actually do trivia questions now. So Mike's going to ask 3 trivia questions based on his session today, or actually 4 trivia questions. Raise your hand, don't shout out the answers, and from there we'll see who the winners are. And there's about 10 of us here, so you have a really good chance of winning. So Mr. Dixon, what is the first trivia question? I'll start off with an easy one. This was in one of the first few slides. But how many people, or what is the maximum amount of people you can add into a single team? 2,500. All right. Which prize would you like? All right. Which?
I'll take mine from small.
We just need your email address.
Sorry.
We just need your email address. It's an e-gift card. Okay. Trivia question number 2.
Trivia question number 2. What are 2 of the 3 best use cases for Microsoft Teams? Again, raise your hand. 2 of the 3. Yes.
Project management and internet?
Incorrect. That is incorrect. Intranet was specifically not one of the big use cases. Extranet, yes, that's correct. All right. What would you like? Backpack? Gift card?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Gift card.
Gift card?
Yeah.
All right. Come on over.
All right.
I need to do another one.
2 more.
2 more. What were on my slides?
All right. So here's a question. If you have a Microsoft E1 subscription, is Microsoft Teams available in your tenant? Raise your. Oh. All right. Well, someone just shouted out the answer to that. These questions are a lot harder to come up with. Okay, let's circle back to the updates that we did at the very start of today's session. Can someone name 3 new enhancements for SharePoint Online that Microsoft announced at Ignite? Raise your hands. You can't win twice. Bill.
Editable tables and Power Apps.
Okay.
Spreadsheet view with Power Apps.
Okay.
And Prebuilt Screens Power
All right. You win. So
Apps.
backpack. All right, it's yours. And for the final gift card, let's talk about archiving in Teams. So if I have a team, Microsoft Teams team, that I decide to archive, can I go into the SharePoint library behind that team and continue collaborating on files? All right, that's the right answer. So perfect. So for everyone that won the gift card, come give us your email address or send us an email address or send us an email to our mailer, and we'll get you taken care of in the next day or so. Last but not least, thanks to all of our sponsors. Without our sponsors, these kind of groups wouldn't be possible. And now, last but not least, but we're going to head over to the Burlington Marriott. It's about a rock throw away, about a mile or so. We're going to have a beer, talk about things that we don't want recorded, and then call it a day. So thanks, everyone, for coming out, and we hope we'll see you there.